and welcome to another big edition of the Rdfnl Netball Show. My name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray from Star Weekly. Welcome to 2018.
I know, it's gone so quickly. It wasn't that long ago we were in Romsey in September at the grand final.
Yeah, exactly. And what a day that was there for the Redbacks saluting to the 2017 flag in A grade. It was a very exciting day.
It was. I think a lot of people said the Redbacks were favourites pre-season, and they proved to be that on the final day of the year. And Lancefield did put up a good fight, unfortunately just not quite strong enough.
Exactly right. So it was a fantastic day. It does seem like it doesn't seem that too long ago because as quick as the season finishes, we're straight into preparations for the upcoming season, which we are on the door of heading this weekend, and some big changes happening around the competition, and particularly a lot of exciting movements at Broadford, who secured a new coach in the off-season.
It is, and that's one of the pluses. You've got Broadford back in the competition this year after not having an A-grade team last year. So they've got Ash Chapman back on board, and he's previously been involved in the club, and he's brought a number of players, and probably the biggest one is Millie Brock. I think everyone sort of got to know Millie last season when she joined Romsey probably midway through the season, and she played that goal shooter role really well and was a big difference for them all season. Yeah,
it's absolutely magnificent. And it doesn't seem that long ago that when Broadford were flying in A grade, they did make a preliminary final as well. So the success is definitely there within the culture of the club to be able to perform well. And once Ash sort of gets the wheels moving with the girls, look out. And with Millie Brock being a star shooter, any team would be really happy to have her on board.
Exactly, and it's good for the club. I know their netball program's been up and down the last few years, so to get this A-grade side back up and going is really good for the club, and hopefully they can build a sustainable side for many years to come.
And hats off to them. They've been doing a lot of work even when they haven't had the A-grade side as well, which has been fantastic. We've seen some changes over at Diggers Rest. Pam Strong has taken over as A-grade netball coach, which is a good move for the club in terms of what she can deliver. Very positive signs there.
It is, and Pam's a very experienced coach who has coached a number of teams across the board, and she's been around the Diggers Rest system for a little while. Her daughter Shelby has played in the A-grade side, so while she may not have been part of any coaching panel, she's been around the scenes and would have seen this side in action.
Yeah, exactly. What are your sort of expectations of them this year?
Well, they've had one big out, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on as well, but they've lost Amy Carroll.
Yep.
So, reigning Ryan medalist, along with Beck Moorabool of Melton Centrals, and I think she was runner-up the year before. So, you look, they've lost their best player, so that's going to be a big out. It's how they replace her. So it'll be interesting to see how they sort of line up without Amy.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting team on paper, because the last 4 seasons, they've been around the marks. They've sort of been around the 7th and 6th position at the end of the home and away season. So they've been talking about wanting to improve, and this is going to be the big year for them, because it's been a long time coming.
It is, and obviously you look at it, their B and C grade sides both made grand finals last year, and it has been a number of years since they did that. So they'll be hoping for that A grade side to push to win finals. They've been around the mix, as you said, the 6th, the 7th, but they haven't won a final the last few years since returning to A-grade finals.
Well, fingers crossed that they can get the right cattle in the park, and Pam can lead them to the success. We can declare the Lancefield will unfortunately be unable to field an A-grade netball side this year, but from all reports, there are other grades that are coming along very nicely.
It is. They've got Michelle Ricks taking over the program there, and I know a couple of people who have come back to Lancefield, having been involved years ago. So hopefully they can build that program back up and get a whole lot of locals through the program the next few years.
Exactly. They've got the right tools in the shed to be able to build that A-grade side for next year, and that's very promising already. So with Al Watson, he's moved on to Melton South in the Ballarat competition there, and hopefully for his sake he has a bit of success as well. But he's done a lot of great things over at Lancefield, which is sensational. Macedon are ticking along very nicely, as you mentioned. Certainly a big recruit sort of coming across, and I think pretty much status quo from them last year. Their lineup is quite settled, and they'd be disappointed in how they finished.
They were disappointed. I think they got hurt. Chloe Wilson missing both those finals. So, and you look at it, they were up against Romsey in that first final, and Romsey came out in that last quarter with over 20 goals just to dominate. As you mentioned, big recruit. They've signed Amy Carroll. So they've lost Tara Burnip. And they've lost Taylor Hardiman, who played a bit of goals in the finals. But you look in that goal insert, you've got Kira Stewart, Chloe Wilson, Amy Carroll. That's 3 very, very strong goalers there to start with. And they've added a little bit more depth as well. So they've brought in a couple more V&L players to add across the board. I think that's where they thought they struggled a little bit, was come finals. They didn't have that necessarily have that depth they were after. So I expect them to be up there. They've really gone strong this off-season. Yeah,
fingers crossed they can certainly keep up that really good form there. We turn our attention to Melton Centrals. understand it's probably business as usual there. Randy will look to get the girls up again for another big crack at the title.
It is. That's one club I've still got to touch base with, but Randy's back in charge there. New York, they're probably a little bit the surprise packets last season. They won not one but two finals, knocking off Rupert's Wood and Macedon come finals time, and made a prelim final. So that was massive achievements for that year, for that team, which had a lot of new players in it.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But probably with Randy, he's such a well-respected member of the Rdfnl netball community, and he's able to get the best out of his squad. And they've proven time and time again that once they make the finals, anything can happen. We did touch on it last year that they really could upset the apple cart a little bit, and they almost made the grand final, but certainly we expect them to be right up there again this year.
Exactly. They're always around the finals mix, no matter who is in that side. They're always consistent, and they're big game performers.
Definitely right there. Riddle welcome back one of their favourites to the club for season 2018. Who have we got on board?
Well, they've welcomed back one of the best players in the competition. So not only a favourite daughter, but one of the best players in the competition in Lauren Close, who won a Bowen medal a few years ago, and I think was second a couple of years later. So Lauren's back as a second Tilsers coach. So she coached them to a premiership a couple of years ago, and she's back. There is a couple more inclusions, but Lauren was a little bit coy about them at the moment. So yeah. I think first weekend of the season we'll get an idea of how Riddle's sort of lining up. Lauren did say it is a pretty similar lineup, so they've focused on bringing local girls through. And speaking with Lauren, she said there was a lot of local girls wanting to try out for the side, so it's a good sign for the future. I think they're trying to build within, and I think we'll see a little bit further development from last season.
I think a reputation as well is well known throughout the community that girls do really want to play for her as well, which is fantastic. And knowing her success and how well she coaches the girls, it's a reputation that spreads far and wide throughout the community.
It is, and I think I think she found the first time coaching a little bit of a challenge, playing and coaching, and so she's had that one season of being able to do that under her belt. Now she's back on board for that second time.
Rockbank, they'll be looking to improve again this year.
It is. They set high expectations coming into the competition last year with virtually I think they had a completely brand new A-grade side, new coaches, new everything. And they struggled, and I think they got found out. So they've learned a lot of lessons from last season. They have brought in another goaler in Rebecca Hicks. They've always found they're not a high-scoring team, and that's what they've needed to address that. And you look at all the top sides, they've had key shooters who can shoot a lot of volume of goals, so they've looked to address that. And last season they've got players coming through. Their under-19s made finals for the first time ever, so there is a lot of positive signs coming from Rockbank, and I expect them to improve.
Romsey will be an interesting case, the reigning defending champs. How do you think they'll match up this year?
Well, they've got a new coach in Luke Marco Rawlings, so he's a Victorian under-23 player, so this is his first tilt of country football netball coaching. He's come across a good mate of Chelsea Ross, and I think that's sort of where that comes. So Chelsea's still on board, but there'll be a few changes there. Yep. And that's it. You've got a few players. He was keeping his cards close to his chest last time I spoke to him. I have heard Monique Clark, who was part of Sunbury Lions' A-grade premiership side, has come across. Other than that, it'll be interesting to see which players they have got. He has got some more strong players coming across.
Be a case of watch this space to see how that unfolds. Rupert's Wood shaping up to be, and I guess another contender to try and play off in finals in this year.
It is. Rupert's Wood's always a contender, and you've always had players coming through. They won 3 flags on grand final day. They're still yet to get that A-grade flag. I think they're still putting the final touches to their squad, but I think we'll see a lot of familiar faces in that side.
Absolutely. We can declare the Sunbury Kangaroos, unfortunately, will be unable to field a team in 2018 in the A grade. As we turn our attention to Wallen, and I think they're probably going to be one of the big surprise packets of the season, because they're back in the mix. They're firing. They've got a superstar coach who's had quality experience at an Australian level as a player, and making his way into the game as a coach at this level.
Exactly. You've got Chris Cameron there. So he, as you were mentioning, he's come on board with a lot of playing experience. And from speaking to some other coaches, they think Wallen will have a very good season. They've got a lot of good players in there. They have got Chloe Melmeisters, who's come across from Riddle, who we've seen as in the goal-in circle there. So she's one player that people are familiar with. But I expect Wallen to have an impact, and that's what some of the coaches have told me already. And
Chris is a teacher by trade as well, a very good educator, and given the experience he has had with some of the elite athletes across Australia, particularly in the men's competition, no doubt he'll be able to pass on some of that knowledge to the girls to be able to perform at a great level. And Wood and Heskett, how are they sort of trekking?
I spoke to them early in the preseason. There'd been a lot of interest in joining Wood and Heskett.
That's good.
The last couple of years under Kelly Duff, and now Wendy Roberts, they've really built on building this program and bringing their under 15s and under 17s through to the system. Probably the one area they've lacked the last few years is height, and they've looked to address that. They have added Tara Burnup in the goal circle, so she's come across from Macedon. She's played in those big matches and adds that height to the goal circle. So I'm expecting them to improve. They slowly have improved each year. They're under 19s, another club which has had strong under 19s the last few years. Those players are starting to come through. You had some of them playing A grade last season, and I think they'll have a few more available that will be able to push into that A grade side.
Exciting thing about the Hawks is they've spent the last few years just building for the future and really building their club for the netball component from the ground up, and there's a lot of good stability there. And to get someone like Tara Burnup on board, who was a standout young star of the competition, if she can have a really good season, have her in goals, and she's got some good company down there. You just never know; they might be able to win more games than they lose in 2018.
I think definitely one team to watch.
Fantastic. We'll turn our attention to, we've got a couple of big games this weekend, and I guess what better one to sort of launch into action by pumping up Riddle versus Macedon. What a game this promises to be, and there's a bit more incentive as well on the day as well.
It is. You've got the Pucker Cup, which is in relation to raising awareness for mental illness. Both these clubs have been affected by players committing suicide in the last probably 12 months, and both these clubs want to raise the awareness that there is people out there, speak up and try and help other people out there.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a fantastic day, and they're going to be it's not only a day of awareness. There is a cup on the line, and across football and netball, there's going to be 7 games that are going to be taking place. So the team with the best aggregate from the wins department will come away with the mighty cup there, which is going to be great. So how do you see this one playing out?
A very interesting first up match. I think it's a good way to start the season. You've got Macedon that's obviously come out. It's got a number of new recruits, and we'll get an idea of how Riddle's going to shape up. Warren's obviously going to be back on the court, and we'll see who these other recruits are for this side.
Yeah, it should be a cracking game. Your tip for this one?
I'm going to go Macedon. Obviously, the lineup they've got is very, very strong, and they're my early premiership favourites.
For the sake of a little bit of interest, I will jump on the Riddle bandwagon. I like to just see to have a nice hit out, and if they can get a win here, this could set up their season. And we know Macedon are going to be right up there again. Riddle will, they'll no doubt look to try and contest at this time of year, so it'll be fantastic. And we've got one more other game, which is on the Sunday. Get along down there to that one. We've got Woodend Heskett versus Lansfield.
No, it's actually it's Woodend versus Rupertswood, because this is the first one of the 2 matches. Obviously, Rupertswood was due to play Sunbury Kangaroos, and Woodend Heskett was due to versus Lansfield, so that will still happen in your B, C and under 19s, but in your A grade it's Woodend Heskett versus Rupertswood, and I think this will be an interesting one. It's a good test for Woodend first up, and we can have a look at who they've brought into this side and see where they can match it against one of the sides that's been up the top for a number of years.
Given Tara Burnup's going to be a bit of a focal point in the goals department, what's Rupertswood's defence generally like?
Generally, they've had a strong defence. Previously, they've had Rebecca Anstey, who I believe is going to be playing again, and they've had a few young defenders as well. So their defence has been pretty good. You look, they're a side that's finished top 4 or 5 for a number of years, so their defence has always been pretty good.
Sensational. Your tip for this one?
I'm going to go Rupertswood, but it wouldn't surprise me if Woodend got up.
Fantastic. I'll jump on Rupertswood's bandwagon as well. Well, thanks so much for joining us in the first edition of the Rdfnl Netball Show for 2018. Tara, thanks so much for joining us, and make sure you check out the Star Weekly website for all the cracking netball stories to come your way as we get ready to launch into a big year.